Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Xbox Casuals, the Xbox podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Derrigan. Alongside me, as always, is the T-Swift to my Kelsey, Josh Finney.
I hate you so much. I hate everything about the sentence you just said.
No, you don't.
I really do.
It's the best thing you've heard all night, Josh.
It's not. It's terrible. Oh, God.
Oh, man. Hi, Josh.
Hi, Corey.
Speaking of football, though, Josh, both of our teams won this weekend.
Both of our teams did win by a decent margin, too.
Yeah. Got to tell you what, man, that Browns defense is scary.
That Browns defense is great. The offense sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, well, yeah. And we also lost our best player last week, so, who's to say?
Are you enjoying the fact that Deshaun Watson fleeced you out $230 million guaranteed dollars?
No, and 3 first-round draft picks.
And 3 first-round draft picks.
So, no, I'm not really, actually.
Corey, life could be worse. You could be a Chicago Bears fan.
Yeah, could be, or a Broncos fan,
or a Denver Broncos fan. Yeah,
oh my gosh,
I saw
70 to 20.
I saw Broncos fans complaining yesterday, and it's like they weren't complaining about 70-20, but they were like, I just can't believe like this team is this bad and blah blah blah. It's like you guys won a Super Bowl in the last decade. I wouldn't be complaining too much.
Yeah, the Browns have never been to a Super Bowl, so.
Yeah, you won Peyton's final game as a quarterback, like barely, but you did it. You played in another Super Bowl also 2 years earlier in which you got spanked and embarrassed.
Yeah.
Shout out Super Bowl 48 champions, Seattle Seahawks. We celebrated that this past weekend. 10-year anniversary. It's great. Yeah, they're. I feel really bad though. Did you see the interview with the offensive lineman?
Yeah, he just looks so defeated, man.
Dude, that guy looked like he was like close to tears. He's like, man, this sucks.
Yeah,
he's like, this sucks. Like he got drafted the year after they won the title.
Oh man,
they had just won the title. He got drafted, and they've sucked ever since.
Yeah.
So it was like shades of Joe Thomas, except Joe Thomas would never look like he was crying at his locker.
Yeah,
that man played every single snap for the Browns in his career.
He was
never played in the playoffs.
He was supposed to be traded to the Broncos like Peyton's last year.
Yep.
And Peyton Manning really tried to say, hey, look, man, you're an amazing player. You shouldn't play for a sucky team. And he stayed.
Joe Thomas is like the Dirk Nowitzki of the NFL.
Yeah.
Except Dirk regularly took us to the playoffs and then took us to the promised land.
Yeah.
So really nothing like Dirk at all.
I mean, to be fair, it's really hard for an offensive lineman to carry a team. So
that's true. It's just, it sucks when you see players like that like don't have a realistic shot. It was kind of like watching Calvin Johnson in Detroit.
Yeah.
Like he's one of the best wide receivers ever and never sniffed the playoffs, really.
Yeah.
And he played in like one playoff game ever. Like Matthew Stafford, everyone was like, oh, we know Matt Stafford is good. And then, the first year he's in Los Angeles, he goes and wins the title.
Yeah. It's so funny, too, because Calvin Johnson requested a trade and they wouldn't trade him, so he retired.
It's really funny and really sad at the same time.
Yeah.
Like how you got 2 amazing players back to back, number 1 overall in, years. Mm-hmm. And you still couldn't put a team around them. You had Sue at one point too.
Yeah,
you had like 3 number 1 overall picks in a 4-year span, and you could make it work.
Yeah,
that's just that goes beyond like ineptitude.
Yeah, talk about the Lions though, man. They're like the little engine that could, man. They're
I mean, sure they lost to the future Super Bowl champion Seattle Seahawks, but
yeah, but I mean, like they're not a bad team. I mean,
they're not. I credit Dan Campbell a lot with that.
Yeah.
I'm not even a Lions fan, and I feel like I would run through a wall for him.
Yeah.
He gets me really hyped.
He's just the guy you want to root for, man.
Yeah, you want to root for him. Like he's a guy who like we weren't sure if he was going to make it out of last year.
Yeah.
With how bad they were doing, and then they turned it around and won like the entire back half of their slate. Mm-hmm. And they started off good this year. I mean, hey, they beat the Chiefs, so
yeah, it's not like they're getting blown out like the Broncos.
I mean, that's true. And like they do genuinely have talented players. They won yesterday against the Falcons. They're 2-1 to start. Like they might be the favorites to get the NFC North title this year, which would be huge.
Yeah.
So, I mean, hey, I'll root for a redemption arc anytime. Jared Goff,
God, he's been through it, right? I mean,
yeah. Former number 1 overall pick, kicked out of LA, essentially. Nobody wanted him there, and goes to Detroit and having a great second act. So,
yeah.
But Corey,
I'm here, Josh.
We have a major week of Xbox stuff to talk about.
I know. I mean, it's really only like it's really just one massive story with breakdown.
It's
parts.
one story that we've continued to dine on all week.
Yeah.
And then just for good measure, here's the CMA deciding something a week earlier than anyone thought, and TGS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should we just go ahead and go into what we've been playing before we get to the headlines?
Yeah. So I finished this game on Game Pass called Beacon Pines. It's like somebody described it to me as if Stephen King wrote a children's book, and it's kind of like this choose your own adventure style game, and it uses this charm system, which is like the game takes place like in like a first person view of the author as she's writing this book, and like you're supposed to like use these charms to fill out parts of the book, but if you pick the wrong charm, it like has some of the endings are really negative, some of them are like really scary, some of them are gruesome, but it all takes place in like this fairy tale land where all these like animals live, and like you're in this town and you have to solve the mystery with the main character and his friends, which is like they're really cool. I really like the two friends of the main character. It's on Game Pass. If you're looking for gamer score, it's really easy. For
like another week, I think it's actually just getting taken off.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, then you guys better play it because it's cool. It's only about, I would say, 6-ish hours, and the achievements are all really easy to get. So if you're looking for gamer score, but it's actually genuinely like a really good, decent game. So
okay.
I also beat Oxenfree for the first time and have moved on to the second one. The first one I like. I don't love these games, but I like the first one, and I definitely feel like I like the first one better than the second one. I don't really know how people feel about this game, but that game is interesting. And then the last thing, Josh, you're gonna be proud of me.
Am I?
Yeah, I downloaded Alan Wake Remastered.
Oh, I need to get to the remastered, and I just haven't. I was so excited when it got announced like 2 years ago, and I just haven't gotten to it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It was free on PS Plus a couple months ago, so I've got it sitting in my library on PS5. I just haven't had the chance to start it yet. I might find some time at the beginning of October to try and play through.
You gotta beat it before Spider-Man, though, dude.
Dude, it's got to be before Spider-Man. It's got to be before Alan Wake 2. It's got to be before Sonic Superstars. It's got to be before a lot of things.
Yeah.
We might not get to it until like December.
Oh, man. And I mean, always playing Disney Dreamlight Valley at some point, so.
Well, I'll tell you what I have not been playing this week, Destiny 2.
I know, I haven't played it at all either.
Just with the insane amount of DDoS attacks they're going through.
Yeah, dude, I went in the other day and I was like, oh my gosh, I got in and I was getting my gunsmith bounties and I got kicked out.
Yeah. I picked a really good weekend to go out of town, so that I wasn't trying to focus on trials or anything like that. That was really nice. So I enjoyed that. While I was out of town, though, I played some Party Animals.
Ooh, how's Party Animals?
It was pretty bad locally. I'm not going to lie. Local play was really bad. You have to set up an online game regardless if you're going to play locally. Yeah, it's really bad. We put some AI players in there to make it, a little bit more filled out, so it wasn't just three of us trying to play it. And the AI is ruthless in that game.
Oof.
Is absolutely ruthless. It wasn't. I didn't have a fun time, but maybe it's just and like the inputs didn't seem like they were really being received. I didn't understand how you were supposed to like pick up and throw people, even though I was doing the move that they taught you. So maybe the controller just wasn't registering for me.
Yeah.
But it was pretty bad.
Do you see the Ori skins are coming to that?
I did see the Ori skins. I will give it another shot on my own console where I'm the only one playing.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be a little bit better there, but yeah, this is it was a pretty big bummer for a game that's been in early access for like 2.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how it was in early access for 2.5 years and launched like this, but that's just me. Watched a friend play a ton of Lies of P this weekend.
Yeah, I'm hearing really good things about that.
It is not the game for me. I'll put it this way. We hit a point and he was like, man, I just don't. It was a 2-phase boss. He's like, I just don't know how to do this. Like, he was dying with like a sliver of health left every time. And we looked up guides, and the guide that we looked up said, this is where the game starts to become unfair and unfun. And we were like, oh, that explains it. He did beat it eventually. But yeah, watching that game, I was like, this is why I don't play Soulsborne games.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not appealing to me.
Yeah.
I found the story to be really interesting, but not the game.
Yeah.
Hey, hats off. If you like games like this, kudos. I just don't like the gameplay style of these types. I don't have the patience is my problem.
Yeah.
I don't have the patience. But what I really have been playing myself is the Cyberpunk 2.0 update.
Yeah. How's that going?
It's great. I rolled a new character. So I'm playing through the very slow prologue again, which not a bad thing, but it is. I mean, the game literally feels like a brand new game.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many new systems. The skill trees are significantly better than they used to be. You actually have to make a build now. So it's been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to Phantom Liberty dropping. By the time this episode drops, Phantom Liberty will be out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be diving in the morning, and on the next show, I'll talk all about Phantom Liberty. But yeah, I've been waiting for this for a very long time. I was an early champion of Cyberpunk. I really liked the original release. I was fortunate enough to not have like a ton of bugs of mine. Got to reset my game twice, maybe, when I was playing it. And after that first day stability patch, I really didn't run into any significant issues on a Series X. I do recognize I was one of a handful of people that did not, though. So yeah, I've always been on team Cyberpunk is a good game, but it goes from good to outstanding here. Like, to the point where when Game of the Year comes around, there's genuinely so much new here. And from what I hear, Phantom Liberty adds so much to the game that I may actually have to wonder if this is eligible for Game of the Year. In my own personal rankings, it's probably making the list.
Well, remember that one year, The Witcher DLC got Game of the Year. So.
I mean, this is kind of on the level of how Blood and Wine changed The Witcher.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited. Hearing how good this is does bum me out that this is the only DLC that we're getting, and it took 3 years to get it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, granted, it took 3 years to get it because they had to spend all that time fixing the game.
Yeah.
This very clearly feels like a game that should have come out probably Christmas 2021, maybe spring 22, with the DLC releasing now. So kind of a bummer, but I'm really excited to get back to Night City. It's still one of my favorite worlds. I love the cast of characters. Interested to see the role that Idris Elba plays. He's really like embracing being a part of the game too.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, he was at the launch party for the game in London. They were doing like live Cyberpunk events throughout Europe for the most part. They did a couple in Japan, I think, but it was mainly in Europe. And he showed up at the final one over the weekend in London.
Nice.
So he's been doing a lot of press for it. He's happy he's in the game with Keanu, and it just sounds like he had a really good time. Like, he may want to do more stuff like this in the future. Because I think once you've done a project like a CD Projekt Red style project, you want to keep doing them.
Yeah.
Because of how much care they take, and like your exact likeness is put in and everything else. So, and I mean, just look at how beloved Keanu has become. I mean, it's part of the Keanu-sance, but like, look at the reception he got when he came out on stage at E3 2019.
Yeah.
And then, all the memes we got out. And then he was at the Summer Showcase this year in the Showcase Extended with Tina Amini. So that it's cool when you see like these big name actors and actresses really get into their game roles. We've talked a lot in Tower Casuals about how much we loved that Lance Reddick was such a huge part of Destiny and Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
And how, Nathan Fillion has been part of the Halo franchise and was a huge part of Destiny. Now he's back, and just like how excited that these actors get who like maybe like, and I'm not saying that Keanu or Idris are niche, but like how like some of these guys are like screen actors and they transfer over to games, but they become beloved here. They may be like bit roles or like in procedurals on TV, but they're beloved by the gaming community.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to, man, I really want to play that, but I mean, like there's just too many games coming out now. Like, I really want to try it. I really want to play it because it looks cool. And I know I haven't even seen the game with like running on the Series X, like the Series X version. So
yeah, I mean, it looks great. They estimate that there's about 25 hours of story that's been added. Story and quest to an already massive game. I think I spent about 60 to 70 hours on my original playthrough of Cyberpunk. So to give me almost half of that back.
Yeah.
And tell me to go crazy with an expansion. And the expansion is baked into where it takes place before the end of the campaign. Is really cool. So I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to be back in Night City.
Yeah. So, well, Josh, what do you say we get into this?
Oh my lord! The busiest week of Xbox ever.
Yeah, I mean, dude, every week since we started this show feels like something has been busy.
This, man, talk about such an unforced error, though. Like, this was such a self-own.
Yeah.
When it leaked, we all assumed that it was the FTC.
Yeah.
And because I was falling asleep the night that everything leaked. I was laying in bed falling asleep and my phone started lighting up. And it was various friends and people who have different time zones messaging me being like, hey, are you seeing these Xbox emails?
I texted you. I was like, how much of this is real? Because I opened Twitter and I was like, what is all this? And then I saw it being like people that I didn't know, like, sometimes you have community members that right? And like maybe you follow, maybe you don't, but they pop up on your timeline sometimes. And I'm like, seeing people I don't know, I'm like, what's happening? What is all this? And then that's when I messaged you after I saw like 5 things. I was like, this can't be real. This can't be real. And then the leak was real. Who knows if some of this will ever come to fruition, but like that leak totally real. Totally real.
Yeah,
somebody's getting fired.
The amount of damage control that had to be done by Microsoft, because there are some emails in there that were cause for, I'm not going to say fanboys, but I'm going to say for like industry observers to kind of slam that panic button preemptively.
Yeah.
So I guess let's start there. Let's start with the email of it all.
Yeah.
So there were a handful of emails. All of these documents, 132 documents total, were uploaded as part of evidence in the Activision Blizzard acquisition case, but they were posted unredacted to the court website. And in there were a bundle of documents, emails talking about acquisition strategy and whatnot. And oh boy, in the most notorious email, and I say notorious not in a bad way, but the one that definitely has gotten the biggest spotlight shown on it, Phil Spencer is talking with a person that I believe is in mergers and acquisitions at Microsoft about companies that they can acquire. And in there, it's discussed, and this is from summer 2020, it should be mentioned. So right around the time we were getting the news about Warner Brothers is looking to sell, Microsoft was interested, EA was interested, and I think Tencent was interested at the time. That is like, not that we didn't think it was credible then because it was being reported by CNBC, but it is confirmed now that Microsoft was really interested in them. Chose to pass on them because they weren't going to get the IP with it. Which, I mean, if you're going to buy WB, you're going to want at least like some guarantee that like, oh, you get the IP for like 10 years or something.
Right.
You get like 10 years of exclusive DC games, or like you get a license with it to create a couple DC games and like maybe a Harry Potter game that are going to be exclusive just to you. And like you're going to fight to get that Mortal Kombat IP. And it seemed like none of that was going to come with it if they went through with this $2 billion purchase.
Yeah, which would be nuts to like imagine Mortal Kombat being made by someone other than NetherRealm at this point.
Well, I mean, yeah, and I don't think it's necessarily that they wanted to give up, that they weren't willing to give up the IP. It's that WB wanted to keep hold of the Mortal Kombat IP because they want to be able to make movies and shit like that. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys watched the 2020 Mortal Kombat movie. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, they're making a sequel, so
which is also going to be pretty bad.
Yeah. So
hang on, I'm pulling up I'm pulling up a couple of emails because I want to read exactly from them, and of course the link that I had is not working. Among the other things in these emails that were discussed, though, was that there was being floated that they were interested in Nintendo and Valve.
mhm.
And that's the one that really set people off, right? They ignored the and Valve part and went straight to Nintendo.
I know, which is hilarious because the Valve part is like way bigger of a deal. I feel like because not only are you getting like some of their IP, but you're also getting their store, like there's PC storefront,
which that would have absolutely been what do you call it? That would have been the bigger
monopolistic.
Yeah, that would have been more monopolistic than the Activision Blizzard acquisition, than any of these others. Like Valve would that would break the industry.
Yeah,
because there's no real competitor to Valve. No matter what you want to say, like the Microsoft Store is not.
No. Epic's not either.
Is not. Like, and that's why, like, that's a whole other thing. Like, in terms of revenue sharing, that's been an argument over the last couple of days. Steam gets away with the 30% charge because, similar to the platforms, because there's no comparison. There's no comparison. No, like, Epic only takes 5% and they still can't get a big enough market share.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because, like, people want all their stuff in one area. Like, they trust Steam. They trust Steam. Steam has never had like major security breaches. They trust them.
Which is hilarious because Microsoft just had a massive security leak.
Dude, there's so many things going on right now. It's absolutely wild. So you have that. I read the Nintendo email as more of letting them down gently.
Mm-hmm.
Than actually pursuing it or actually thinking that they would have a chance at it. The line that really seemed to get people up in arms was that Phil said that if they ever acquired Nintendo, that would be a career-defining acquisition.
Which
and that
is a true
they're
statement.
ready to play the long game. Yeah. Okay, so I found it. So he was replying to somebody who works in, I'm going to assume that works in Microsoft Asia, Takashi. He says, we have two fairly active M&A, merger and acquisitions in gaming right now. Warner Brothers Interactive and ZeniMax. I took ZeniMax to the board of directors, and prior to that, I asked if they wanted me to slow either or both of these, given the acquisition. They were in TikTok negotiations at the time, and they both emphatically, Satya told me no. They're fine doing all three of these if the deals make sense. I won't say WB or ZeniMax is Nintendo, but both are for sale and gettable by us if things align. Biggest obstacle with WB is IP ownership. We wouldn't own any IP, which hurts long-term flexibility. And the only obstacle on ZeniMax is valuation expectations of founders. And they talk about it. And somebody else at Microsoft, Chris Capicella, comes in and basically says, they have to, and it's bolded and underlined, they have to be willing to sell.
Yeah.
And they have to see us as a top company to sell to, like Mojang did. So that's it. But yeah, and Phil ends his email with, I love the discussion and value you are looking at with opportunities here. At some point, getting Nintendo would be a career moment, and I honestly believe a good move for both companies. It's just taking a long time for Nintendo to see their future exists off their own hardware. A long time, ... smiley face. A couple of thoughts, because this was in early August 2020. This is clearly after the PS5 reveal where Deathloop and Ghostwire were confirmed to be exclusives.
Mm-hmm.
They moved pretty fast on that ZeniMax acquisition.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing, because this would put the timeline at about 6 or 7 weeks before the announcement.
Yeah.
That was announced at the end of September, right about the time the Series S was announced. They were clearly meant to go in tandem.
Yeah.
Um,
And they also I mean, that moved pretty quickly too, because what's his face wanted to sell because he was dying, right? So
Robert Altman wanted to sell the company. He had a terminal illness. He had terminal diagnosis of cancer, I believe. He wanted to move pretty quickly on it, and said that he wanted to sell to Microsoft.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where it comes in, your valuation expectations of the founders. I would say that this is nothing outside of the ordinary for major. You have to remember, Microsoft is $1 billion corporation. Like, the end game of capitalism is to acquire and grow.
Mm-hmm.
You are always looking for opportunities to grow your business. Every single company does this.
Yeah.
The only difference here is we're seeing the communications in broad daylight, and I genuinely cannot believe that some of this was put into an email.
Yeah.
I'm actually shocked that the mentioning of Nintendo and Valve, basically the whole first paragraph of this, I am shocked, is in this email where they talk about, Nintendo or Valve potentially becoming available. And it very much reads like Phil letting this person down, like, hey man, you got the right idea, but it ain't going to happen.
Yeah. It's so funny because I see online where this comes up and people are like, Microsoft only wants to buy things to become competitive. And it's like, well, yeah.
Oh yeah. The whole point is to stay competitive. And it's like, if your end goal of your Microsoft is to grow your platform, not necessarily the plastic box necessarily.
Yeah.
But to grow Game Pass, to grow digital distribution, to be on as many devices as humanly possible as a publisher, and this and that, it makes sense to go after them. Like, Activision was clearly, and the other thing I need people to understand is this was all done before ZeniMax was a done deal, before Nintendo was a done deal. Like, we were actually super close to seeing Warner Brothers join Xbox. Like, I think that's probably the biggest part of this email, frankly, was just how close Warner Brothers was to joining Xbox.
Yeah.
And the only holdup was they weren't going to get a guarantee on IP.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that leads to a spiral of things like, oh, Gotham Knights underperforms last year, but they get the miracle of Lego Star Wars, right? They get Skywalker Saga, which does amazing, one of the best-selling games of the year.
Yeah.
This year, they get Hogwarts Legacy. They're going to get Mortal Kombat. Like, they got 3 absolutely massive wins in 18 months, which is probably enough to keep David Zaslav from selling them now.
Yeah.
But it's clear Microsoft was ready to fork out it was estimated at the time that Warner Brothers was looking for about $2 billion. They were willing to shell out that $2 billion, but I also see that, like, okay, at this point they had to have known Suicide Squad was in develop, or at least known where Suicide Squad was, and Gotham Knights, and like, pretty clear those didn't interest them. Like, those didn't overly thrill them.
Yeah.
Hogwarts Legacy was so up in the air until like the home stretch that nobody knew how that was going to turn out.
Yeah.
And NetherRealm has been heads down for years. So
yeah,
it's kind of like, I get it. Like, that was a far bigger risk than, like, ZeniMax. Yeah, you're paying 3 or 4 times that, but you're getting Elder Scrolls, you're getting Fallout, you're getting Doom, you're getting Wolfenstein, you're getting, all the teams that you're getting id Tech, you're getting Team Games, you're getting Arcane.
Yeah,
you're getting teams that made Dishonored. Like,
yeah, and you're getting a mobile studio and a support studio. Like, you're getting a lot out of them.
Yeah, you're getting support studios, you're getting mobile studios, you're getting teams that have worked on VR, teams that have worked on every platform under the sun at this point. You're getting the id Engine.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're getting all these other things. Not to mention you're getting IP rights for dormant franchises like Quake.
Right.
So, like, yeah, from a business sense, you're paying more, but it made way more, and you're securing Starfield.
Yeah.
Like, above all else, you're securing Starfield, you're securing Elder Scrolls 6, you're securing Fallout. Like, even if you decide to take those multi-platform at some point in the future, you're securing those releasing on yours. If we forget the other part of the equation at this time was Imran Khan was reporting that summer that Sony was having discussions after the PS5 reveal about taking Starfield full exclusive on PlayStation.
Yeah.
And was willing to shell the money out for it.
Mm-hmm.
We now know that, again, through these emails, we now know that some of the ZeniMax documents, which we'll get into in a second, pointed that they expected Starfield to make them over $1 billion lifetime.
Yeah.
And so I don't think there was any suitable number that could have been thrown out there at that point. But it shows you just like how ZeniMax valued it, how clearly Sony and Microsoft valued it. Like, I think that rumor, I think, was the catalyst for them to be like, okay, no, we're getting this done now. Whatever you guys want, you can have. However much we have to pay.
Yeah.
This is a company that really needed to rebound its image. It kind of fits with the whole Microsoft strategy that we talked about in the past too, right? Like studios that are down on their luck, don't sell well. This is a publishing company that had released Wolfenstein Youngblood, Fallout 76, and oh god, I feel like they had put something else out recently that wasn't a huge hit. They'd had some random VR titles that weren't big, like Cyberpilot. Yeah, I know was one, that Wolfenstein flight simulator thing.
Yeah.
Skyrim for like the 5th time.
Yeah, it's what was the other game they put out?
Dishonored 2 was a sales disappointment. Dishonored 2 and Prey did not sell nearly well enough. Even great games, but they didn't sell well.
Yeah.
So this kind of was a great move for both companies. Like Microsoft gets beefed up by these great studios and these IPs. Like Doom Eternal was the one hit they'd had in the last couple of years.
Yeah, let's see. Doom. Let's see. Fallout 4 VR, Doom VR, Rage 2, Cyberpilot, which was the Wolfenstein game, Youngblood. Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's like really nothing to be.
This was in the middle of like the Bethesda board's push for live service too, which we know those conversations led to Deathloop, Redfall, and the likes of those. I think we're finally out of that though.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess just like kind of wrap the conversation on the emails, like that's a fascinating peek at how some of these arguments and agreements work. There was a whole nother one of like Game Pass values that came out, which what would it cost? Basic, and that was the most recent thing in there from my estimation.
Yeah.
That was sometime at the end of 2021, beginning of 2022, where Phil realized we're not going to have Redfall or Starfield this year.
Yeah,
and he even says in the emails like it's unacceptable.
Yeah,
like it's unacceptable. We reported as much when he talked about it at Gamescom last month.
Yeah,
that he was like, yeah, that's unacceptable. That can never happen again.
Yeah.
Without us having major AAA titles. So they were looking to see like what can we fill that slate with. And some of the games that were thrown out there are, how much would we have to pay EA to get Jedi Survivor Day 1 on Game Pass?
Yeah.
It was estimated like $300 million. It's estimated that they pay every time that they have Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto 5 on Game Pass, they pay $12 to $15 million per month.
Yeah.
That it's on there. Hogwarts Legacy was another one they threw out there. They wanted Lego Star Wars, but they were afraid of how it would look given the reports of crunch around that game. And then there was one at the bottom, and this is what everybody's chosen to focus on, rightfully so. Baldur's Gate 3. They estimated it would only cost them $5 million to get Baldur's Gate 3 on Game Pass.
That's hilarious. I mean, to be fair, like nobody knew Baldur's Gate was going to be that big, though, right? I mean, like, if you would have said 6 months ago,
I won't say no one, but I will say people who play CRPGs or who play those style of games absolutely knew this was going to be a huge game. Going into this year, I'll be completely transparent with you. Going into this year, I didn't hear a lot of talk about it, but my friend Ray, who has been playing this game in early access for 2 years, was like, yeah, no, people are not ready. This will be Game of the Year. This will be a Game of the Year contender. This will absolutely, he's like, this is maybe the one thing that I think will be on the level of like Tears of the Kingdom in terms of polish. And I would say he's been vindicated. I would say it's probably the favorite right now for Game of the Year.
Yeah. I just think like maybe console players didn't know, and like some people
absolutely did not know.
Some people didn't really know what was going to happen because it was supposed to be a Stadia exclusive, like console, I guess, exclusive, right?
I think that's why it kind of flew under the radar. It was mainly meant to be a PC game, and then it was going to be released. It had the exclusivity with Stadia, and Stadia went under. I still remember when the initial trailer was announced for Baldur's Gate 3 was really underwhelming. That was at the Stadia reveal event.
Mm-hmm.
And then a year later, we get the early access stuff with Jeff Keighley and Summer Game Fest. And we're like, oh shit, this game actually looks really good.
Yeah.
They put it out in early access, and it stays in early access for like another 2-3 years. And then it finally comes out. Anyone who played Divinity Original Sin 2 knew this was going to be good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's a difference between, oh, this might be like a top 10 game of the year, and oh my God, this is like arguably one of the greatest games ever made.
Yeah.
Is a pretty big gap. But there's another term, there's some terminology they use there, which is second run. And second run does not mean that they think it's a second rate game.
Yeah.
Second run means this is the second console it's coming to. It's usually like definitive editions or something like that. It's considered second run in these documents because at the time it was still only seen as a PC and Stadia game.
Yeah.
So that is what second run means. But yeah, Larian has responded to that because people were trying to use that to dunk on Microsoft, and Larian's director of publishing was like, hey, everyone kind of underestimated us.
Mm-hmm.
We sold more than we thought we would in our entire lifetime on opening weekend.
Yeah.
So like everyone underestimated us, and they're like, that's like nothing on them. Like that, it's a business. It's a business. Of course, you're going to try to acquire something, for as cheap of a price as you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
And good for Larian. Like they knew the product they had after Original Sin 2.
Yeah.
So I don't think that this necessarily rules it out that like, oh, maybe when it comes to Xbox down the line, maybe it'll show up, like, especially if this drags into next year.
Yeah.
But the deal would certainly have to be worth a lot more at this point.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how it's selling on PS5 right now. I think we'll have to wait until October to find out. But
yeah, I mean, anecdotally, it's selling pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, it's still top 10 Steam charts. Hasn't left the top 10 since it came out. It's been almost 2 months. So good for Larian.
Mm-hmm.
I guess should we pivot into the ZeniMax?
Yeah, let's do that because there's some really interesting things, especially like if you read the stuff that goes along with the slides they showed. Like, yeah, let's get into that because I have a lot of comments about this.
The only thing I have like specifically pulled up here is the ZeniMax release schedule, which is from fiscal year 2020 or 2021. It was from around the time of the acquisition, what they had planned to release.
I think it's worth noting too that none of this information is from this year. Nothing. Yeah,
nothing. We're noting if anything is like more recent than 2020.
Yeah,
which right now just like that Game Pass information was, and then we've got some information on the next Xbox, the next iteration of the Series X.
Yeah,
those are the only like super recent things, I believe. This schedule, though, everything kind of played out just in staggered years because of COVID and things like that.
Yeah,
but starting with fiscal year 2022, which fiscal year 2022 ended in, I want to say March-ish? June. Well, so here's the thing. We don't know if this... I believe if this is going off of ZeniMax's old ones, I think their fiscal year was actually just the calendar year.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking Microsoft's starts and ends in June. But if you're looking at this, they had planned for 2022 to be the release of... And this is where stuff that we haven't seen yet was scheduled to start coming out.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones was originally planned for 2022, which sounds kind of wild considering Todd won't even let us see it until 24 now.
Yeah. That also a lot of the stuff. I don't know if you read some of the stuff that came out around this slide in particular, but Indiana Jones is also planned to be a trilogy, supposedly.
Yeah. So you said you had some of the information that goes along with this slide. That was probably the biggest revelation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was. I mean, why would you do a deal? I mean, this was Bethesda though, but why would you get a licensed IP just to do a one-off too, right? So I mean, it's not that surprising, but the fact that it's kind of maybe confirmed if it's a great game, like, I'm excited for that.
it would make sense because you and I for years have been yelling, what is Machine Games working on?
Yeah.
Because the last time they made a full-on game was New Colossus.
Yeah. Because they didn't do New Blood or Youngblood. Sorry,
they co-developed Youngblood.
Yeah,
they've helped. They did that. They helped with the shooting mechanics and Deathloop. but they're hiring for multiple projects over there, one of which is Indiana Jones, one of which has a multiplayer component. And we've thought for years, oh, that's got to be Wolfenstein 3. Well, it might not be, according to this.
Yeah, I mean, they said Wolfenstein 3 would be a Wolfenstein 3 like 4 years ago, it seems like.
And then Pete came out, I think it was last year, and was like, I don't think that we see Wolfenstein 3 before Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Which makes sense now, looking at this roadmap. It wasn't even on the roadmap.
Yeah.
Fiscal year 2022 also was supposed to include an Oblivion remaster, which, if you remember, that was on our very first episode. We talked about that.
Yeah.
So that is seemingly confirmed to be real. And a remaster, not remake, it is worth noting.
Yeah.
That is easy money.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's a layup. I expect both of those to be out next year.
Yeah.
There is little to no doubt. Those are both, because the other things included on here are, of course, an ESO expansion and Starfield DLC.
Mm-hmm.
That feels like it's 2024's plan.
Oh, yeah. I feel like they just kind of moved everything 6 months to a year ish.
At least.
Yeah.
At least.
Well, maybe 12 months to 18 months, I guess.
Yeah, I think 12 to 18 is probably more accurate. Fiscal year 2023, so what they originally planned for this year, Doom Year Zero.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So that's, I mean, I would assume that's a prequel to the 2016.
I would assume so. That would be my guess.
Yeah, which is interesting, I guess, because Doom 2016 kind of starts with him waking up, right? I guess this would be the one where he goes back into the coffin or whatever.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'd like to see what that is. And they had DLC planned. They had 2 years of DLC plans for this game too.
Yeah.
So whether those are more expansions like the Ancient Gods, which incredibly well received, you'd have to think that that's probably what they were aiming for at this point.
Yeah.
This looks like it was made right around the time of Doom Eternal coming out. So why wouldn't you want to capitalize on that?
Yeah.
And then there's two projects here, Kestrel and Platinum. And it's worth noting that Kestrel also has an expansion plan for the year after. My best estimates for these is that one of these is probably the JRPG that we've heard that Tango is working on.
Yeah.
My other guess would be that one is a ZeniMax online IP. As far as the expansion thing is concerned, I think that has to be an MMO of some kind.
Which we know they're working on a new one, right? So
they are working on a new one. I just don't know. So the only hesitation I have on this is we're going to get into, I'm just going to call it Beyond. We're not even going to call it fiscal year 24. We're just going to call it Beyond.
Yeah.
I would say that one of these is probably a Tango project and one is either ZeniMax Online or it is Roundhouse.
Yeah.
I have no idea if anything other than Doom on this list could come out next year. I do think Doom is, if it really is a Doom game, I think it's next year.
Yeah.
I think that is an easy thing to reveal this fall or at the Game Awards and then say it is out in August.
Yeah. Or
out in October or whatever. Like, there you go. Boom.
Yeah, that would make sense. It's been what since Doom Eternal, like 4 years?
2020. Yeah, it'll be 4 years in March. So, and if it is Doom that you're doing, I don't think you're doing too many massive upgrades to it. And that's not the discounted. I mean, AAA games take 4 to 5 years to build.
Yeah.
So 4 years feels about right for the reveal on a new Doom game, especially if they started shifting people after Ancient Gods.
Yeah.
You didn't need the whole team to work on Ancient Gods. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So 2024 and beyond. Elder Scrolls 6. You're not seeing this thing before 2027. This was extremely wishful thinking that you were going to see this in 2024.
Yeah, I mean, they just went into full production recently? Like,
they went into full production. Todd has said it will not take as long to make this as it did Starfield.
Yeah.
And you can read that two different ways. You can read that as it took 8 years from Fallout 4 coming out to Starfield releasing, or you can take that as it took 5 years from 76 to this coming out.
Yeah.
Either way you take it, this game at the very earliest is holiday 27, I think.
Yeah.
I personally think, given what Microsoft reveals in the rest of their documents, that with them thinking the next Xbox is coming in 2028, that is probably what they're holding Elder Scrolls 6 for.
Yeah, and it'll be a cross-gen title.
It'll be a cross-gen, but I can't fathom you having that IP almost ready to go at that point and not dropping that as a launch game.
Yeah.
I can't fathom that.
I mean, that would be such a killer launch title for the next Xbox.
It really would be, whether it's exclusive or not. Like that would be, and by exclusive I mean exclusive to the next generation, or if it's cross-gen.
Yeah.
There's almost no way it's not cross-gen.
Yeah.
But you know, who knows what the industry looks like, what cloud distribution looks like at that point, etc.
Yeah.
Fallout 3 remaster, that's been rumored for years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, it's been rumored since like the Switch got announced. So this is nothing new.
Yeah.
I fully expect to see this in 2025.
Yeah.
You know, why not? Why not? That again, easy money.
Yeah.
This one I do think will probably be a little closer to home. The Oblivion remaster rumors are that it's not being developed by ZeniMax directly.
Yeah.
Or by Bethesda directly. I think this one actually would be. I wonder if either the Austin studio or the studio that works on 76 will be the two that do it. If they use an outside contractor, I could see them going for the 76, the studio. That
I would say
all that.
76 team.
Yeah, I could see that. We've long thought that Bethesda Austin is probably going to be the stewards of Fallout going forward.
Yeah.
Which would make sense to me. But if they are, just let them go ahead and get started on 5.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 projects that I wonder about the viability of them now. I think you probably have a much better chance of them happening now versus pre-buyout.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Dishonored 3,
Yes.
which everybody thought we're never seeing another Dishonored. Deathloop is the new iteration of Dishonored. It's clear they want that IP to keep going.
Yeah.
And I think with Game Pass, that makes it a lot more viable.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to sell as much. You can let these studios like Arcane work on their more niche stuff because things like, you know, Starfield and Elder Scrolls are still going to sell.
Yeah.
It kind of goes back to the argument that we've seen with like Josh Sawyer before. Like, yeah, we know there's games that our studio makes that are going to sell, but it allows us to make smaller, more creative games like Pentiment and Grounded that normally would never have gotten funded without something like Game Pass.
Yeah.
And I truly think that without Game Pass, Dishonored 3 probably gets very quietly shelved. We probably never hear about this at all. The one that I think is far less likely is Ghostwire Tokyo.
A sequel to that? Yeah. I don't think so.
I think that is, and I'm not saying that it won't happen. I'm saying that Tango is pretty clearly expanding its horizons. Ghostwire Tokyo was Akumi Nakamura's baby.
Mm-hmm.
And then she left the studio like 3 months after its reveal. So Shinji Mikami stayed on to finish it.
Mm-hmm. And he's gone now too. So now you're looking at
now gone as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now it's like John Johannes is the one of the directors over there, who, of course, director of Hi-Fi Rush. And he's talked about, you know, how they want to become more than just a horror studio, essentially.
Yeah. Which is good, because Hi-Fi Rush was such a surprise, not only like a change for that studio, but like the art style and the type of game it was, and how
it was such a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, how likable that cast was, right? So
like, I think even like just going beyond like, oh, this is from the studio that's done Evil Within and Ghostwire Tokyo. It was like nice to see Microsoft embrace a game like that.
Mm-hmm.
Which it is on these documents, just not called Hi-Fi Rush. It is Project Kabuki.
Yeah.
It was originally planned for release in fiscal year 21.
Mm-hmm.
Ghostwire Tokyo might get a sequel, and I mean, again, because of Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
But from what I understand, the game it sold fine on PlayStation, and it just has all but been abandoned on Xbox. Like, it's gotten more players because it's on PS Plus now, it's on Game Pass now.
Yeah.
But I think it just recently crossed the 5 million player mark, 4 or 5 million. That's not bad. Don't get me wrong. Like that's fine for a AAA game on Game Pass.
Yeah, but you got to look at that initial sales, like the first 6 months and maybe a year, right? Because it wasn't on Xbox.
Yeah, and I think like maybe Microsoft is willing to like give it another shot. But if this studio really is wanting to do a JRPG or, you know, do a follow up to Hi-Fi or something like that, then I don't know if they're going to want to do that. Another possibility is it's not listed here. They've said at various points they're working on Evil Within 3.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting. This is from 2020, and those comments came well after 2020.
Yeah. I wonder. Without Shinji Mikami there, you really think they're working on Evil Within 3 still?
I think so. I think there's more than enough people. I mean, it's the same argument that we've made about Arcane Austin in the past. People came to work at the studio because they had the expectation of working on a certain game, a certain style of game. I think that Phil wants that to stay a distinctly Japanese company. He made some comments at TGS this week about how they have plans for first and third party AAA Japanese exclusives. And I think Tango has to kind of be the leader in that.
Yeah.
He cited Hi-Fi Rush as an example of a really successful game from a Japanese studio. Well, what better way to, get people on board than to let them make the JRPG that they supposedly want to make?
Yeah.
And you have to think that they probably have more freedom now than they did under ZeniMax.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Because, hey, sales expectations aren't everything, this and that, but people interacting with your game, interactions, downloads, time spent in game, etc. Like things like that are the bigger ones. There's one more juicy thing on here though that I want to address, and this has been the subject of a lot of speculation. It just says licensed IP game, and
it sounds like a lot of people are pointing at Marvel for that.
A lot of people are pointing at. So I've seen the finger pointed at Disney overall. Nick over at Xbox Era said that on his pod over the weekend. He thinks it's Disney adjacent, but he doesn't know anything beyond that. Destin Legary has said, I believe that he thinks it is the long rumored Mandalorian game. That was where my thought immediately went when I saw this. Was I think this is the long rumored Mandalorian MMO. That's what was reported. God, I want to say it was close to 2 years ago. That was the rumor going around.
Yeah.
There's also been a rumor. It didn't get nearly as much traction, and I think it's because people like Jez didn't pick up on it as much. There was a rumor going around that Roundhouse was working on a Marvel game at one point, based off of a LinkedIn listing or a LinkedIn profile update that somebody did that referenced that they had worked on a Marvel game with Roundhouse. And I believe that was last summer. So I'm a little curious to see what happens here. I do think it would make sense for it to be Disney, considering if they really are thinking about Indiana Jones becoming a trilogy, then, why not also secure some other rights while you're there?
Yeah.
I would be interested to see what a Marvel game from any of these studios would look like.
Yeah.
Because given the here, and I mean, like, Marvel doesn't mean like, oh, we're going to get a Spider-Man game from them. But I do think, like, I'd actually almost rather see a Star Wars game. And let me tell you why. I think any Marvel game is going to be either fairly or unfairly compared to Insomniac's Spider-Man. For better or worse, that is the gold standard now for Marvel games.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say Ultimate Alliance 3 for Nintendo Switch there.
I do like Ultimate Alliance 3, but and that would kind of fit in the wheelhouse of what I had heard.
Yeah.
Of what I had read as a rumor is that it was supposed to be like a PvPvE style game, and I don't really like that.
Yeah,
an Ultimate Alliance style game is about the only thing that makes sense. Like
a
tactical battler, and if you waste the Marvel IP on that, I'm going to be really upset for an exclusive. But I think you're gonna be compared to two things. You're going to be compared to Spider-Man, and you're going to be compared to if it's a more casual game, you're going to be compared to Snap.
Yeah. Or even if this comes out like
Wolverine.
Yeah.
So when I look at the portfolio because it's important to remember, this is a Bethesda thing. This is not a Microsoft thing. This would be a Bethesda studio thing. I think mainline Bethesda's out.
Oh yeah.
If you're going to narrow this down, it's going to be ZeniMax. I don't think it's going to be id. It's going to be Machine Games, or it's going to be Arcane.
Yeah.
Specifically Arcane Lyon.
Yeah. I mean, Machine Games is already working on a lot, assuming.
Machine Games is already doing Indiana Jones. I'm saying they're out.
Yeah. And clearly they already have their next project lined up, which we don't know what that is, but I doubt it's this, right?
I highly doubt.
You wouldn't give them 2 licensed IPs. I mean, you could, I guess, but I mean, you'd want somebody else's thing.
It'd be dumb.
It also depends on what the IP is too, right? Because you don't want to put I don't know, like it just depends on what the IP is too, I would say.
Yeah, I think this is fascinating because if it is Roundhouse, then you're like, oh boy.
Mm-hmm.
If it's ZeniMax Online, you're going, oh boy, it's an MMO.
Mm-hmm.
The more I think about it, the more I think that Destin's line of thinking is probably the one that it is.
Mm-hmm.
This is likely the long rumored Mando MMO.
Yeah.
And again, it's unknown if this will ever see the light of day.
Yeah.
But I would say if you already have the license, you're going to try your hardest to make the game off that license.
Yeah.
Or to make anything with that license. I mean, plans could have changed in the last 3 or 4 years, and they're like, "Hey, we don't really want you guys making an MMO anymore because we're going to this big cross-shared universe."
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be really cool if ZeniMax Online did a non-MMO game. I think it could be really cool. Like, what if they did do a Mandalorian game that was, it's single player, but you can play with up to 3 friends or something.
Yeah, that would be cool. Like, I would play that for sure.
You can play up with up to 3 friends, and like maybe we do an expansion or 2, that tie it into, the upcoming Heir to the Empire project, essentially.
Yeah.
What if we did something like that? Like, I think that would be cool and like still be a way to keep it grounded in universe. The struggle with a Star Wars game that is MMO is always going to be, if there's not lightsabers, I don't think people are going to want it. Because everybody wants to be a Jedi or a Sith, and I understand that the Old Republic exists, but specifically you have to wonder, is there enough juice on the Mandalorian name without us, I don't know, abusing it, so to speak.
Yeah.
To be able to do a game like this and it still be played, and we don't know what the Game Pass ramifications would be of that also.
Yeah.
Like, it is, I would say it's fairly likely that they've had to revisit some of these conversations after buying ZeniMax and be like, hey, these games are going to come to Game Pass.
Yeah.
I've said for years I'll be absolutely fascinated to see what the agreement was for Indiana Jones.
Yeah. That'll come out someday, I'm assuming.
It'll come out the next time that Microsoft forgets to redact things.
Yeah.
But the other big portion of this, I think, is Phil also mentions in some of his emails that he thinks the AAA strategy of using licensed IP is bad practice.
Yeah.
That it is seen as a way to basically make money really, really quick with lower risk because original IP has bigger risk.
Yeah.
And he specifically talks about the Avatar game, about Spider-Man. You have to wonder if he's okay with something like Indiana Jones because he sees it as like, yeah, it's a little bit of a higher risk, but it cost him considerably less to get those rights.
Oh, I'm sure it didn't cost like a quarter of what Spider-Man costs, right? I mean, I'm sure Indiana Jones isn't exactly like a AAA tier IP right now, as much as I love that movie. But
yeah, so it's like, do you come out and decide we are going to fork out this money for a star? I mean, but this would have been a Bethesda decision. Like, did Bethesda go and pitch a Marvel game? We know they were taking open pitches for games from Marvel and from Star Wars.
Yeah.
Did we go and pitch one of those? I'm very curious to see what this is. Like, Bethesda's no stranger to wanting licensed IP.
Yeah.
They've just failed to make things materialize in the past, such as with Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to see what happens here. And like, I think the problem with Star Wars also is like, if it's really good and people are going to be like, oh, well, this is what Starfield should have been all along. And that's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
So
I was also thinking, I mean, do enough people play the Old Republic to keep it going? Just because like I feel like the game's been out for such a long time that maybe they might want to retire it, especially if it's canon or not canon, right? And they would want some new product out there. I don't know. I was just thinking about that, like something like the High Republic would take it over or whatever, since that's kind of like their hot item right now. Off screen,
yeah, at least. I would be interested to see if this is a Star Wars game. I'd be interested to see if it's going to be Mando centric or if it's going to be High Republic centric.
Yeah.
Especially with how, Jedi Survivor ties into it and everything, and how that's their big publishing initiative. If this was being pitched back in, 2019 or 2020, it would make sense that, hey, we really want to, we wouldn't mind being a part of your initiative, or, maybe they pitched a game and Lucasfilm was like, hey, what if you made a piece of media to go along with these new projects?
Yeah.
Because the only thing that like really puts a damper on me thinking that this is Mandalorian centric is that would have had to have been approved within like months of the first episode airing.
Yeah.
Because this show premiered in late 2019, and then, March 2020, you've got the pandemic happening.
Mm-hmm.
We know ZeniMax has been working on a new game for a couple of years now, though. So, I mean, maybe it's not the craziest thing.
Yeah.
But I would warrant caution when we're saying that, oh, this is going to be an MMO.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that. I think maybe it started out as one, but I think it would be really short-sighted of Microsoft and Disney to agree to this being an MMO when you know that. And I mean, if it's an MMO, they're probably going to put it on other platforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
But why would Microsoft want to give up? Like, oh, hey, we made an exclusive Star Wars game, but we're giving it to everyone.
Right.
Like, you can't pigeonhole an MMO. Like, at some point, your multiplayer games are going to start cannibalizing each other.
Yeah.
And that's not good. Like, now you have things like Call of Duty, you have Diablo, you have Overwatch, you have these other IPs coming into the foray with Activision Blizzard. You have Gears, which is kind of dormant right now.
Mm-hmm.
At some point, you have to stop with the multiplayer games. Like, Sea of Thieves, it's a miracle it's gone on as long as it has. It didn't have a whole lot of competition on Xbox platforms.
Yeah.
Then you factor in third-party competition, Apex Legends, and you're going to have Warzone is going to be part of the Xbox banner soon. Like, Destiny and Fortnite and just 2K and Madden, and like, there is not enough time to play all these games that are going to have like season passes and expansions and this and that. Like, you're about to have an in-house MMO with World of Warcraft, another one, on top of ESO.
Yeah.
So you have two of the top performing MMOs. You've got 76 in house. You've got Sea of Thieves in house. You've got all these games as a service. If you made an exclusive Mandalorian game, single player, maybe you have the option to run things as a crew.
Yeah.
Make this what Outriders tried to be, basically.
Yeah.
You would have a really good formula.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be curious to see what would happen there.
Mm-hmm.
I just hope that somebody made that pitch like 3 years ago and is not making it for the first time tonight.
Right. Oh, man. Yeah.
Do we have any final thoughts on the ZeniMax parts of this before we move on to the juiciest part of this, I think?
I do not have anything else. I'm excited for 15 years of Indiana Jones, maybe.
Yeah, Corey and I are like two of the only people on the planet who are ready for 3 Indiana Jones games.
Yeah. And hopefully that ride at Disney will be done soon.
Oh my God. Could you imagine if the game ties into it?
Oh my gosh, that'd be amazing.
So let's talk about a codename Brooklyn. This Series X refresh. If you thought that the Series X looked like a mini fridge, well, this looks like an Amazon Echo knockoff.
It looks good, though. I like the design.
I like the design. This is being pitched to be released next holiday, which comes in line with what we've heard about the PS5 refresh, of a smaller, thinner console with a detachable disk drive. I have to imagine there's a detachable disk drive for this thing.
Yeah, I would imagine there is, just because, like, I mean, if somebody wants to upgrade for that storage space, like, you got to have that disk drive for people who collect physical games, right? I mean,
yeah,
it makes sense. You don't need an HDMI in or out or whatever, right? You can essentially it's going to transfer the data to the SSD anyway inside the console. Yeah. So it's going to just be like a USB-C cord at the most, right?
I'm very excited for this. I love how this console looks. I think this looks awesome.
Dude, this is the coolest console I think Xbox might ever, quote unquote, release, if it ever comes out. They are pitching this to be
$500. I'll tell you, the only maddening thing about this is they just started coming out with console wraps, and in a year they're going to be irrelevant.
Yeah. Well, I think if most people who already have one, though, won't. I mean, we're the people that buy the 2 or 3 of the same console, right? I mean, how big of a audience you think will truly be affected by the wrap thing, you know?
I mean, yeah, but it's like you pitch this as a way to like not have to do special edition consoles anymore, and they like, by all accounts, look and function great.
Yeah.
And like a year in, we're gonna have to pull back on them because before some of our franchises like Gears or Halo have even a chance to have something with them because we're releasing a whole new look on the console.
Yeah.
I find it a little silly. They're seemingly doubling down on the Series S also with a new model.
Yeah, I saw that
I've been
too.
trying to figure out if this is supposed to be the new, and I to my credit, I don't remember what the picture looks like. I believe we got a picture of it.
It's literally the same box with USB-C ports instead of USB ports.
I think that's really silly.
It's
Part of me was wondering if the refresh for that got moved up a year because it's supposed to be a 1 terabyte model.
Yeah.
I can't imagine putting out the 1 terabyte model this year and then next year saying, "Oh, we're updating it again."
Yeah, I bet this 1 terabyte model that just came out is that, and they just decided to not spend the money on those resources to refresh it again.
I would hope so.
I mean, we could be wrong, but I doubt it.
There's also a controller refresh coming.
Yeah.
Microsoft is leaning into haptics.
Yay.
Haptics and gyro controls, two things I don't care about.
Welcome to 2020.
Pretty much. I do like that on their little infographic for this, one of the selling points is rechargeable and swappable batteries.
Yeah.
Because that's my biggest complaint about both my Pro Controller and my PS5 DualSense.
Yeah.
I don't like that I can't put my own batteries and my own battery packs in.
Yeah.
It's really hard to charge those things while you're playing, whereas Xbox controllers are always like pretty friendly to being charged while you play.
Yeah.
Have been for 20 years. Why fix what isn't broken?
Yeah. I hope like there's a picture on the slide. I hope it's not 2 colors. I
don't think it's gonna be.
Yeah. I wonder if it's just showing like, okay, the white one will come with the Series S eventually, and the black one will come with the Series X. Maybe, I don't know.
Possibly. Some of the other features they're doing are lift to wake, ergonomic, same ergonomic feel as the controllers now, which I know Corey hates. New style thumbsticks for longevity and anti-stick drift.
It's gonna be quieter too.
It's going to be quieter. It's got Bluetooth 5.2 built in, direct to cloud. There's going to be a button on the top where you can swap between different profiles.
Mm-hmm.
That's the biggest selling point for me.
Yeah.
Is you're telling me I can use this with my console, with my smart TV, or with my phone. I'm on board for that. I can just travel with it. Seamless pair and switch. I guess that's what we're just talking about. With mobile app features, including paired devices and cloud. And then precision haptic feedback, and then haptics that double as speakers. That is absolutely my least favorite thing of PlayStation controllers is the built-in speaker.
Yeah.
I can't wait to turn it off the second that I get it.
Yeah.
The absolute second I get it, I'm turning it off.
Yeah.
So this controller, at the time when this little launch timeline was made up, is set to launch next May.
Yeah.
If I'm reading this correctly, it's supposed to launch in May, and then at the summer showcase, they'll announce the console refresh.
Yeah.
For the fall, but that the 1 terabyte Series S is supposed to be $299, and then the 2 terabyte Series X digital will be $499.
Yeah.
At the end of October. But yeah, their biggest, one of the other thing is that they want to take the 512 model and sell it at $290 or at $199 on Black Friday, which that's going to sell bonkers copies.
Yeah.
Or units. But yeah, I'm pretty in on that, I think.
Yeah.
I would absolutely buy this Brooklyn console. And I think that's who it's more geared towards is like people like us.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is a bit of a bummer that it's a refresh, though. That's a mid-gen refresh, and they're keeping it at the same price. I really think this was a good opportunity to lower the price even by like $50.
Yeah, just because as SSDs are becoming cheaper and there's no disk drive, right?
Well, I mean, and it's a digital console.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, hey, the plans can always change, right? These slides we're pretty sure were from last summer.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like
I
these
don't
would be
know
the
how.
newest kind of.
Yeah, I don't know how much like you could have pivoted in that time.
No, if you're showing this stuff in slides, they're pretty locked in, I would assume.
I would assume, for me, I would assume that the controller is at minimum the controller is locked in.
Yeah,
because you got to update Design Lab and things like that. The controller is locked in, and that's fine.
yeah. I mean, you got there's still supply chain issues, so I would imagine that the consoles are too. If not now, they're pretty close because they gotta lock up.
I would say that if you're launching a refresh of the console next fall, that design now is locked in. It remains to be seen if like the pricing and the model from last summer that they were projecting is going to be locked in.
Yeah, you think if this is $499, they'll drop the price of the other one, or you think they'll just phase it out?
I think that's then that's kind of the conversation I wanted to get to, because the disc console for PS5 is $100 more than the digital.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be really silly if we get to 2024, 2025, and you can't buy an all digital console for $400.
Yeah.
I think that's really silly. Oh, well, we have the Series S for you. Like, no, people don't want that. I'm sorry.
I also wonder,
they do, but they don't.
Yeah, I also wonder if they're gonna wait to reveal like the real price to see how much that PlayStation update is. Because if they sell that thing at $400, there's no way you can release this at $500.
Well, and that's kind of what I'm getting at is I think Microsoft wants to see what Sony's going to do.
Yeah.
There's probably going to be a removable drive. I'd be really shocked if there isn't. They're clearly, leaning in on, hey, USB-C is the future.
Yeah.
Everything has gone USB-C, even iPhone. There comes a point where you have to just kind of take your shot and hope that it lands. And it seems like that's what they're doing with these next consoles, even beyond this. This is the mid-gen refresh, which it's funny that Phil has like publicly been denying, like, no, we're not doing a mid-gen refresh, and like you totally are. It should be noted, these are not increases in power.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be shocked if the Series S had a slight bump in power, just to like kind of get it over the hump a little bit. But I don't think that you're going to get like, I think when he says there's no mid-gen refresh, it means there's no like Series X Pro, right? And from what I understand, I don't think PlayStation is doing that either. I think last gen was very unique because we went so rapidly into what could and couldn't be done. And I'm not saying we're plateauing, but we're definitely like slowing up a little bit.
Yeah.
But they already have the specs for the 2028 console being worked out and possibly finalized.
Yeah.
Among the biggest things, and again, this was from last year, they were trying to decide what kind of architecture they were going to use. If they were going to stay with the traditional architecture, or if they were going to move. If they moved, it's probably a good idea for them to decide it now, because the backwards compatibility team is going to have to go to work pretty much right away.
Yeah.
In making sure that things can work and you can keep transferring your libraries over, because there is the expectation now, and Phil has talked about this, where you want to take everything with you.
Yeah. There's also the 2028 console is going to be a hybrid console. You think that means like cloud, or you think they're actually going to try to like do a Switch like thing? Like, not that the console plugs in, but like they might sell a separate device that's handheld. Because in one of these slides there is a handheld, but I also wonder if that was solved with like the ROG Ally and other devices.
My take on that is, when they say hybrid console, that is absolutely cloud.
Yeah, okay.
They're absolutely aiming for cloud. I don't think that Microsoft really is too worried about the mobile market right now. I think that if anything, they would announce a partnership with like the Steam Deck to bring Game Pass as a dedicated app to the Steam Deck. I think that's a much more likely thing to happen in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
And then they have the partnerships with ROG and with these other devices that natively run Windows.
Yeah, the Lenovo one that's coming out.
Yeah, there's going to be so many handheld PCs, and I mean, like, hey, if it's a handheld PC and it's got portable Windows on it, Game Pass kind of comes with it as an extension, anyways.
Yeah,
they've got to deal with NVIDIA Force.
Yeah,
and so I mean, really, all that's left is Steam, and they have a really good relationship with Steam these days. So I think that Microsoft probably has abandoned plans for the handheld.
Yeah.
It might be something you see down the line if they decide it's viable enough. And I'll tell you when you're going to see the handheld is when they've decided that the investment into cloud has reached a critical mass.
Yeah.
that they can start monetizing it. Like they've pulled back on console cloud
Mhm.
and are investing in PC cloud more than anything right now.
Yeah.
Because that makes sense.
Yeah.
Things like the ROG Ally, things like the Steam Deck, like it makes sense to dive in on that rather than console because it's just not there for our internet yet.
Yeah. I also theoretically like you could actually have like a handheld that's by 2028 that is the power of the Series S, but I agree with you more. I was just thinking out loud.
Yeah. I'm interested to see what they end up doing because on this roadmap, it also showed Keystone, which got canceled.
Mhm.
And that was the streaming set-top box that we now know nearly went into production last year.
Yeah.
Was like weeks away from being announced and being in production and everything, and then they just canceled it.
Yeah.
So Microsoft definitely can change things on a whim. They're a billion-dollar company. They're able to change things. I would say the design for this console is locked in.
Yeah.
For the 2024 refresh, I think it's locked in.
Yeah.
I think that the controllers obviously are locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryan McCaffrey picked up on this when looking at like the different SKUs and stuff, that there seems to be language indicating that you may be able to design your own console. On one of the charts, that the acronym that was used is the Xbox Design Lab, and it was next to one of the console SKUs.
Yeah.
So if that happens, that would be one of the coolest things they've ever done.
Yeah.
Design your own like Series X cylinder or something.
Yeah. I also wonder if that's what these wraps are, and you'll be able to customize your own wrap.
Possibly, because this was definitely referring to, I think, the refresh and the 2028 console.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. And they found a way to make it cheaper than to buy a whole console, right? So,
yeah, I think there's a lot there.
Mhm.
So I'm excited, like, I guess, to just like kind of start wrapping up the conversation of everything that's here.
Yeah.
And this is a very, very, very like broad overview of what was in all of this. Like we didn't get to everything. There's no way to get to everything without spending hours upon hours here.
Yeah.
I would really encourage you to go read coverage from VGC, from Axios, from Tom Warren over at The Verge.
Yeah.
I know Rebecca Valentine and her group over at IGN did some really, really good writing on this. She did a really great piece on the adoption numbers for Series X and S.
Yeah.
Which got misinterpreted by a lot of people and also like had an erroneous tweet posted with it.
Yeah.
That at one point Series X was outselling Series X like 3-1.
Yeah.
And that was because Series X's were not available at that. It's estimated by Matt Piscatella and Chris Dierig over at Games Industry that number is much more like probably 50-50 now.
Yeah.
That X is going to continue to outsell S now. Like if you got an S, it was because it was either out of necessity. We have several friends who did that.
Yeah.
Or it's because you're buying another console or you're buying it just to be on Game Pass and things like that. Like it is the entry level next gen console.
Yeah.
Current gen console.
Mm-hmm.
God, it's 3 years in. We got to stop saying next gen. Is the entry level current gen console. I expect you're probably going to see your first significant sale on that on Black Friday this year.
Oh yeah, I bet it drops, especially with this new one out. I bet it drops.
I would suspect that. I suspect the 512 one will go on sale for at least $250.
Yeah, I wonder if they start phasing out the 512 one.
Yeah, maybe they do it early with this refresh they've already done. And so that, and again, like we speculated earlier, that could already be an example of, maybe we aren't going to do the Elwood refresh next year on the S. We're going to let it have its own time in the sun now alongside Starfield. Like this is the cheapest way to play Starfield. It's got a 1 terabyte hard drive. We heard your complaints that 512 wasn't enough. Here you go. Yeah, go crazy.
Yeah. Also, like, I mean, you got to remember in 2022, supply chain stuff was still like up in the air, and they probably were like, well, if we can't get these components, we might as well just put a new SSD in it and color it black and call it the day, right? I mean,
yeah, there is the entire possibility that we're doing that.
Yeah.
But I guess we'll wait and see. This is a very rare peek behind the curtain that we don't normally get for good reason. Like, this is their entire like next 5 or 6 years essentially leaked.
Yeah.
Granted, we don't have anything from like their true Xbox game studios, but even getting the Bethesda information from a couple of years ago is still pretty damning. Like, you can kind of look at that roadmap and be like, well, nothing on here is like super surprising.
Yeah.
Outside of now that we know what some of these project names are that have come out, like Hibuki, I think we would have been interested in that. And you could have been like, oh, well, that's a Japanese game from the beginning.
Yeah.
But to see things like Ghostwire Tokyo and like unnamed IP and a couple remasters, Dishonored 3, like those are all things that I think we're like, okay, they're not like ultra surprising, but I think after the performance of Ghostwire, we're like, oh, we're a little surprised. If we'd seen this in 2020, we'd be like, whoa, they're really confident in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly not.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what happens there. They're clearly very, very confident still in the performance of Series X.
Mm-hmm.
They know they're not going to outsell PS5, but they're confident in tech. They're confident in like Game Pass and things like that. I want to see how Xbox really responds the rest of the generation with this, because now you have Activision Blizzard in the fold.
Yeah.
You're at kind of a critical mass, and that's kind of a good segue into our next topic, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So
with the CMA.
Yeah, I mean, so we've the day we've been waiting years for to stop talking about the UK, the CMA has preliminary approval of the Activision Blizzard deal. This came earlier than expected. I think the official approval will come within the next week or so, probably, I'm assuming. So it's done essentially. Yay.
Yeah. Apparently the deal can close as quickly as October 6th now, which it feels like it's going to close the second it can. They essentially said that, by divesting your cloud business to Ubisoft is, significant enough that we can get behind this. There is a clause in there. I read a little bit of it, and it was reported on that Microsoft is banned from acquiring Ubisoft or trying to acquire Ubisoft for X number of years.
Yeah. What was it, like 10 or 15 years or something?
10 to 15 years. I think it's like the length of the agreement.
Yeah. Which makes sense, I guess.
It's very funny. But
yeah, right. They just bought Activision Blizzard. You really think they're going to try to buy Ubisoft next? Go through this again?
Yeah, right. Like, I don't think they ever want to go through this again with this big of a company.
Yeah.
And I really, truly think if they could go back in time, I don't think they would go through this.
No.
We know now from some of the other charts that we saw in the FTC slides. One of them was like how much time people spend on the average game or on the top 20, 30 most played games, whatever it is. And Destiny was on there with like 400 hours a year for the average player.
Yeah.
I think if they could go back, they would just buy Bungie and call it a day.
Yeah.
How relieved are you that this is about to be over?
Look, man, we were still doing our old show when we first started talking about this. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of talking about this.
We are approaching 3 years.
Yeah.
In January, it will have been 3 years since this got announced. It is finally coming to an end. Thank merciful God.
I can't believe it took this long, dude. Like 3 years, man. Like that's...
Excuse me, 2 years. 2 years. My timing is off. 2 years. My timing is off.
Still, 2 years, man. That's a long time.
It's pretty bad. It should never have gotten to this point. I personally don't think they really had to divest as much as they did with Ubisoft. But they did. Here we are.
Also, arguably the least important part of this business, right? The cloud at this point.
I mean, I think that CMA is trying to look ahead. Like in 10 to 15 years, they don't want somebody to have like a head start in a monopoly. And like, hate to break it to you, Microsoft does have the head start there.
Yeah.
Really, really hate to be the ones to tell you this, that don't understand video games, but Microsoft does have the lead in that department between them, Sony, and Nintendo.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly a small lead either. Yeah, just God, we're almost at the finish line, people. I really hope that the next time we have an episode, I can come in here and say that it's been closed.
Yeah.
They'll surely have a little video with Phil and stuff, like
I'm sure
later on this fall, announce their plans going forward for Call of Duty and Diablo and all that. And God, I hope it's accompanied by Bobby Kotick is out of here.
Yeah.
That is like the one thing I think we're all waiting for at this point. God, just get Bobby out of here.
Yeah. Oh man.
What a disaster.
Yeah, I don't know. You think Microsoft will try to buy someone else after this, or you think they're gonna like not or wait a while because of this?
Man, they gotta wait a little while. I think we'll never. I never say never, because I mean, Capcom was literally getting asked about it at TGS interviews about what would their response be hypothetically if Microsoft tried to purchase them.
Yeah.
I don't think Microsoft ever tries to buy another publisher again.
Yeah.
I think they know that they can't. Like, maybe they get away with a smaller one, like an indie publisher or like Paradox or something.
Yeah, but
I think that would be it.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Capcom's out of the question the way they responded, and you know, I think Sega would be out of the picture now.
So I literally just said never say never, and that I would never, and then in the same breath I was like, I think they're done buying publishers. I think Sega is it's genuinely the one publisher that the door is still open on.
Yeah.
I think they have such a close relationship. Microsoft clearly wants a foothold in Asia. Sega is the one thing they have there, but I think at that point they would have to divest themselves of certain businesses and certain companies to get that through.
Yeah.
And I don't think that they're going to want to give up Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And I think that would be like the big thing, like, oh, well, you know, if you guys give up like Call of Duty or like give up Blizzard or something, then you could probably do it.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, I think financially, if you were to do that, Blizzard would be the one that you would kind of divest yourself from.
I don't know, because I mean, like, you're kind of hedging I mean, dude, you're giving up perpetual moneymakers in Diablo, World of Warcraft, Hearthstone, like, not to mention the IP that they have, even if they're kind of dormant, you know, in StarCraft and whatnot. Like, I don't know. I think that's a really tricky situation, but yeah, I think you would have to like get rid of Activision Blizzard at that point.
Yeah.
Try and get Sega.
Yeah.
Or like sell parts of it off.
Yeah.
And that's not even to say that, like, this is a Japanese company, so it's already going to be harder to do.
Yeah.
But there were clearly talks that were happening with them and Sega.
Yeah. Man.
And I think I do agree. I think it was way more feasible before Activision Blizzard. Again, if you could go back in time, would you rather have Sega or Activision under the Xbox banner?
I mean, financially, I guess Activision makes more sense, but personally, Sega.
But personally, as a fan, a fan of good games,
I would have liked them to gone after Sega to have that foothold in Japan, and then, you know, like you said earlier, Bungie, and it would have been like still a tenth of the price probably that. Or, well, Sega's, I guess, like at least a quarter of the price that the Activision Blizzard deal would have been.
Sega was valued at like $6 billion, or something.
Yeah,
most recently.
And they would have overpaid because they're Microsoft, right? So,
yeah, your closing price would have probably been like 10 to 12.
Yeah, that's what I would say. And then, you know, if you wanted Bungie, they probably would have overpaid for that too if they weren't. You know, I mean, what did Sony buy for? $3 billion?
I don't think so. Sony drastically overpaid for Bungie. Microsoft had a walk, as far as we know, they had a walk away price. Microsoft had a walk away price. Also, they weren't going to cave to the we'll let you stay independent.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother podcast, though.
Yeah.
Just so thank God our long national nightmare is almost over.
Jeez.
But, there's a lot of news out of Japan too, though.
Yeah, I know. So. There were a lot of, like, I wouldn't call them like super announcements, but there are a lot of things coming to Game Pass day one. They do have a Square game coming in Octopath Traveler 2. Finally, release date for Eiyuden Chronicle 100 Heroes, which is coming to Game Pass. They announced the new expansion for Fallout 76, Elder Scrolls Online. They showed the Ace Attorney trilogy is coming to Xbox.
There's 2 Ace Attorney games coming to Game Pass.
Yeah, that one, and then the what was the other guy? Justice. What's his name?
Apollo Justice.
Yeah.
So we're getting the Phoenix Wright trilogy on Game Pass, Xbox Game Pass, and PC Game Pass on the 26th. So by the time you're listening to this, it'll be live.
Yeah.
And then in January, Apollo Justice is coming. The Apollo Justice trilogy. That is not confirmed for Game Pass, by the way. That's just coming to Xbox and PC.
I wonder if they're going to make a deal for that. I wonder if they just didn't announce it because the deal's not done. Maybe.
It's very possible. I mean, we just talked about Capcom. Like, Capcom is clearly trying to get more of a relationship with Microsoft. Yeah, we had Exoprimal day one on Game Pass.
That new IP.
Yeah, the new one that for a split second we all thought was Onimusha.
Yeah.
And then my heart was broken when we realized it wasn't.
Yeah.
What else did we get?
We got Althea, the Wrath of a Fairy. Is that what it's called? The action adventure Odyssey. Something. Yeah.
There is a Dragon Quest game. Infinity Strash is Adventure of Dai.
Yeah.
Is coming to Game Pass this week on the 28th.
That game looks cool.
It does look cool. If you've never watched the anime, this is pretty clearly inspired by that in the manga.
Yeah.
So
it looks cool though. I like the combat. I like the art style. Which this isn't the first Dragon Quest game. Dragon Quest 11 came too.
Yeah, but it's just like those aren't games that I typically expect to come to Xbox.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty cool. And
I mean, that was my point though. I mean, like Dragon Quest is a pretty big deal for them to get.
They had someone from Square talking about it, and he was like, yeah, we look forward to bringing Dragon Quest to Xbox in the future.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
I think the biggest announcement for me out of all of this was honestly the Like a Dragon stuff that they announced.
Mm-hmm.
So, Like a Dragon Inshin came out earlier this year. That's going to come to Game Pass later this year. And then Like a Dragon Gaiden, The Man Who Erased His Name, which is the prequel to Like a Dragon that we got a couple years ago.
Yeah.
And also ties into Infinite Wealth coming out in January. That is going to come day one to Game Pass in November. That's a huge get.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one. I know that game is like a huge deal to Yakuza fans or like a
That's
Dragon
a huge
fans,
deal. And then there's going to be a special version, a special trial version of Infinite Wealth that is going to come to Game Pass users early next year, I believe.
Yeah, and then your save data transfers over.
Yeah.
So
the last thing that came out of this whole game, I think this was a really cool Game Pass stream, or not Game Pass stream, Xbox stream.
Yeah.
Other than the Japanese people who just kept being like, Xbox is amazing. Like, okay, this is really cordy and really PR fed. Suiri 65 and Suda 51.
Yeah.
Are they were on there at the beginning, and I was like, why are Suiri and Suda here? That's a little weird.
Yeah, and they're making a game together.
Maybe they're trying to get like famous Japanese developers on here. Are we going to see Shinji Mikami at some point? No. And I saw people going crazy with speculation. Oh my God, does this mean Kojima's going to be there? No. Although Phil has said he's staying in Japan for another week to have meetings with Kojima.
Mm-hmm.
Hotel Barcelona. This absolutely looks like something that these two guys would cook up. It looks delightfully weird.
Yeah.
It's like, I think the best way I can describe this is it's like a Souls-like meets Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
I'm absolutely on board with this. I want to read exactly from Xbox Wire about this just bizarrely weird game. Self-styled 2.5D slasher film parody action game. Drawing influences from across horror's history, you'll be pit against everything from aliens to AI-enhanced sharks while stuck in an endless time loop filled with serial killers and only your deceased past selves to help you. Suiri and Suda appeared during the show to discuss the game. Suiri said the game's unusual beginnings, with Suda asking him to announce a collaboration on the fly with no prior discussion, and his inspirations from The Shining. Suda explained that he and Suiri worked together on the initial concept, then all of a sudden, Suiri completed tons of work on development and Hotel Barcelona materialized. Most of the time when someone does lip service like that, the project never materializes, but Suiri made this a reality in order to deliver something to the fans. This is supposed to come out next year. It is not, as of right now, it is not a Game Pass game.
Yeah.
But I want to say it was Suiri made an Xbox exclusive several years ago. D4, that's the one he made. He made D4, Dark Dreams Don't Die. It was one of the original games announced for the Xbox One back in the day. And it was supposed to be this episodic Japanese detective game. And I really loved it, but we only ever got the first episode of it. There were multiple episodes planned, and we just never got the rest of them because it simply did not make money, unfortunately. And then Suiri also left the studio that he had founded that was making it. But that was published by Microsoft, so that partnership is pretty clearly still there.
Yeah. Yeah, the gameplay looks pretty cool. I'm watching a trailer right now.
Yeah, I'm here. I definitely want to try it. I like really weird games, and this definitely feels like it. But yeah, this was supposed to be like the one that they originally worked on was supposed to be a seasonal episodic game, and all we got was a prologue and 2 chapters, unfortunately. Which is a shame because I was really invested in that. I like what kind of neo-noir storytelling. And I've always maintained that I think that like episodic games work really well on a service like, not that this was out when Game Pass was, but that a game like this probably would have had a lot more traction with Game Pass.
Yeah.
Like Microsoft probably would have been like, hey, here's a lot of money to keep making it.
Yeah. I mean, when they were talking about Game Pass, like right when it came out or before, they said this service is going to be perfect for episodic games, right? I mean, that's what they pitched to.
Yeah, a little bummed they haven't done another collaboration with Don't Nod.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought it was a pretty solid TGS show, and we can't leave without noting ESO is going to be completely localized in Japanese.
That's crazy, man.
That's huge. I mean, those kinds of games are huge over there.
Yeah,
in Japan and in Korea. So, and if Phil is really serious about wanting to build it, he said that they've like quadrupled the amount of PC Game Pass users.
Yeah,
in Japan. So that's just over the last year, I think. So a little curious to see how they keep going. I mean, Eiyuden Chronicle obviously has been shown at several showcases now. We got the first game last year. These were Kickstarters originally. If anybody wants to remember, Eiyuden Chronicle was announced as a Kickstarter back in like 2020.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden gets announced as coming to Game Pass the next year, and everyone's like, what?
Yeah, and then they put that prequel out. Right, that kind of like side.
That was the one I was referring to. Yeah, that came out last year. Wasn't a huge fan of this. This is supposed to be like the game that's really like Suikoden.
Yeah.
So,
which is unfortunate that the HD remasters are coming out soonish too, right? Of Suikoden.
Yeah. I want to read what Phil Spencer said here. Japan will always have a special place in my heart for pioneering innovative ways to play, from Game Boy to PSP to the Switch, which had a lot of people bringing up, hey, remember that leaked document?
Yeah.
Handheld Xbox.
Yeah. Right.
But he had to specifically address that comment and say that I didn't mean anything by it, blah, blah, blah. We'll see how accurate.
Just like he said, they're not doing a mid-gen refresh.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I mean, I don't think Xbox is going to make a handheld personally, but it would be nice.
Yeah, I liked it. I like it was a good show. It could have been better, but I mean, compared to when their TGS show used to just be like Minecraft updates.
Yeah.
I think we'll all take this over that. There was they showed good portions of Persona 3 Reload and Persona 5 Tactics. If we didn't already know about those from E3, that would have been a bombshell. But it was really a lot of updates on things we already knew about, and I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I mean, I would rather watch this for an hour than Minecraft for an hour and a half. So
yeah, I enjoyed watching this at like 2:00 in the morning. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
It was actually like way worse than I was like 4 a.m. I think.
Yeah.
I was so tired. I woke up to watch it and I was like, oh boy, I kind of regret waking up.
Yeah. One last thing on this though, they did show that new track for Forza, which looks pretty cool. I mean, I know you're not exactly into Forza, but
I'm gonna give it the old try, the old college try this year.
Yeah. All right, Josh, a couple of DLC topics here.
Hit me with that DLC, Corey.
Hideki Kamiya is departing Platinum Games.
That was a wild thing to wake up to this morning.
I know. I actually didn't see it. Ed actually messaged me. He's like, "Did you see this?" I'm like, "No." And like,
yeah,
this is crazy, man.
The speculation is that he's going to team up with Shinji Mikami again, like they did for Platinum.
Yeah.
That they'll make a new studio, and it's probably going to be financed by NetEase or by Tencent.
Yeah.
Which is a shame.
Yeah.
It's a genuine shame. The creator of Yakuza did the same thing.
Yeah.
Basically took the bag and left.
Yeah.
I think there's like an extreme outside chance, but I think by outside chance, I mean less than 5% chance of this happening, but they've both had relationships with Microsoft in the past and have both wanted to make games with them.
Yeah.
Do you think there's any chance they set up maybe their own studio under them with some funding?
I mean, I wonder.
I think if it was just Mikami, it would happen. I think that Phil is like pretty done with Kamiya's bullshit.
Yeah.
After the whole Scalebound incident, and it was basically revealed that he was like taking that money to like work on other games.
Yeah.
And then when he started running out of money, was like, "Oh, hey, what if we make Scalebound again?" And Phil was like, "LOL, no."
Yeah. The thing that I'm like, I mean, I'm not 100 like really worried about it, but I'm like, what happens to something like Bayonetta? Because he's the one that said, I want to make like 10 Bayonetta games or something. And I know the IP is made by Sega, so maybe that would, I don't know, man. I just know Bayonetta was like his baby, right? And
I have to think that Bayonetta is probably done.
Yeah.
Maybe they do another one, but Bayonetta 3 was a little rough.
Yeah. I mean,
from what I understand,
I don't need another Bayonetta. I'm not the biggest Bayonetta fan.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of like.
I think that series sold just well enough. Like,
Yeah.
But I don't think that, Nintendo's going to come in and save it yet again.
Yeah. I mean, I think the entire series only sold about 5 or 6 million copies, and the first one didn't even sell over 1 million until the Switch came out.
They are the very definition of 1 and 2 are the definition of like cult classics, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, 2 especially, I would say.
Yeah, well, 2 was a huge hit. I mean, on the Wii U of all places, right?
Yeah,
but I think we all forget that Bayonetta 2 doesn't happen without Nintendo stepping in the finance. Mm-hmm. Which the whole reason, it's exclusive, and that's why Bayonetta 3 becomes exclusive. They did that prequel or spin-off game or whatever it was last year.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah.
Whenever that was. But 3 had all the controversy around the voice actors coming when it came out, when it was ready to come out.
Yeah.
Just there's a lot there with 3. 3 felt like it just kind of came out and nobody really paid it much attention.
Yeah.
And I think when you look at the greater Nintendo lineup over the last couple of years, Bayonetta was far less important to it now than 2 was when it came out back in, what was it, like 2014?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they needed that a lot more then than they do now.
Yeah, definitely.
Because they didn't have a lot of games on the Wii U. That was the game where people were desperately trying to convince you that you needed to buy a Wii U just to play this game, and I'm glad I never did.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if we get more Bayonetta, fine. I'm more interested to see where Kamiya sets up shop, because I mean, this is one of the guys who was behind Devil May Cry.
Yeah,
I love Devil May Cry. So
yeah, they could also. I mean, they were together too before Platinum, when Platinum was still Clover. They made like Okami, which would be an interesting direction for them. What else did they make? I mean, I guess Beautiful Joe, technically.
Oh man, that breaks my heart that we can't get more Beautiful Joe.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see what kind of game they go and make. Like, it's going to be more lighthearted. Is it going to be like horror? Because I feel like Mikami wants to go back to horror.
Yeah.
So that like may limit if these two team up.
I mean, they could technically go like the Devil May Cry route again and have like, it's kind of a horror game, but like a stylized action game. I just feel like, I feel like they're like, if they did do something, I feel like their personalities clash and the types of things they want to make clash. Right. I mean,
I think that's part of what makes them good partners too. My bigger question is what happens to Platinum Games?
Oh, because I bet Platinum's gone within 2 years.
Platinum has put out how many stinkers in the last couple of years?
Yeah. I mean,
Babylon's Fall was not coming to save that studio.
No. Yeah, man. I don't know, man. I as much as I would love an Astral Chain sequel, which technically owned by Nintendo. I mean, I think Platinum's done. I mean, we already knew they were in trouble anyway, right? I mean, financially, they're pretty in trouble.
Since Nier Automata, they have put out Astral Chain, which, by all accounts, everybody who I talked to that played it said it was a great game, but it barely sold 1 million copies.
Yeah.
Wonderful 101 Remastered. World of Demons.
Is that the
Soul
mobile
Cresta?
game?
Yep. Soul Cresta. Babylon's Fall. Bayonetta 3. Bayonetta Origins. Those are the games they've made. And at one point they were developing Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, but Cygames, who was publishing it, took over development of that a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really feel like Scalebound getting canceled kind of screwed them.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even before then, like Nier Automata really was a huge moment for them.
Yeah.
Like even just looking at their history, it like Bayonetta, Vanquish, Metal Gear Rising, Bayonetta 2, and then they had 2 bad Star Fox games.
Yeah, gross.
And Nier Automata. Like Nier, I really feel like saved that studio.
Yeah. And it had such a long tail on it too, which means they were still good.
Oh, it's at a massive. I mean, they look how many games have milked Nier at this point.
Yeah,
having like just random ass crossovers. It's been 6 years, guys.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah,
it's been 6 years.
Yeah.
I feel like that game really, really saved it, and like the partnership with Square Enix. But you know, then they turn around, their next game with Square is fucking Babylon. So, they got, I would say, like maybe they get purchased by like Sega, simply because Sega, I think, still has some of the rights to things like very convolutedly through like to Bayonetta and Vanquish.
Yeah.
maybe they step in, or Square steps in and buys them up. No, I don't think Microsoft is going to be really clear.
Yeah. I mean, what do they don't like, the problem is they don't own anything. They don't own any IP.
And I think that's going to be the biggest problem for them, I think, is that they don't actually own anything.
Yeah. I wonder if, when that's, most of those people came from Capcom. I wonder if they would ever go back to Capcom.
I think the biggest question is, how long does Atsushi Inaba stay there? He was, of course, kind of the third member of like that trifecta.
Mm-hmm.
And he's the main producer over at Platinum.
Yeah.
How long does he stay, or does he jump ship to? Because if he's still there, then I think you can make the argument that the studio is worth probably picking up.
Yeah.
If you're looking to gain a foothold in Japan, it wouldn't. I mean, I think that like if Nintendo or Sega or even Sony came out and announced, "Hey, we're acquiring Platinum Games sometime in like the next year," that wouldn't be shocking to anyone.
Yeah.
Sony probably has the best chance at making that studio into something like, or keeping it as something respectable.
Yeah.
Again, like there's so many Japanese companies I could see stepping in and saying like, there's enough, because the problem is Platinum has the talent.
Yeah.
It's the talent. It's just, I don't know if the direction is there is the problem.
Yeah.
Without Kamiya.
They seem to have no direction. I think the one direction they had was when Nintendo saved Bayonetta, and and then obviously Square let them do Nier, but like,
yeah,
I feel like that was the direction, and then they did that bad Ninja Turtles game and the bad the okay Transformers game, I guess. But like, they started taking all these licensed IP to keep the lights on.
Yeah. So, and I mean, the cancellation of Scalebound certainly doesn't help either. Games I would have loved to have seen. I feel like more and more that these three are gonna probably end up linking up and doing a studio, but I just don't know. We'll probably have something in like 2 months on this.
Yeah. All right, Josh, the next story I put in here especially for you.
Oh boy.
Tales of the Shire.
Oh god, I'm so fucking ready for this.
Josh's dream game is coming next year.
I'm extremely excited about this. It has been described as a cozy Hobbit simulator.
Which would be what, kind of, I guess, their version of Animal Crossing, I guess.
Yeah, I'm taking this to mean Lord of the Rings Animal Crossing. And if you're telling me that I can have a village with the hobbits and like Sauron can come over for coffee, I'm here for it. I really hope that he brings the Witch King with him and Gandalf has to sit there and they just hash out their differences.
Yeah.
Can I recruit Carl Urban's Eomer to come live in my hobbit hole?
Yep.
Because that would be great.
Yeah.
This, in all seriousness, though, I'm more excited about the tech in this than anything because it's being developed by Weta Workshop.
Oh, yeah.
Who, you don't know Weta. Weta is the special effects studio that Peter Jackson founded.
Yeah.
That did all the special effects for the Lord of the Rings trilogy. That did them for King Kong and is doing them on Rings of Power. I'm really, really excited for Weta to be making this game.
Yeah.
This might be like the one thing that Embracer makes that I want to buy before they shut everything in sight down.
Yeah.
I hope that this game actually ends up coming out and that it's reasonably priced. This is like a $30 game that's going to be a must play for me.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because like the two bad companies are involved because Weta is owned by Unity.
Oh my god. I love Weta though. Weta is just such a good company though. They've made so much awesome shit over the years. I can't wait. I can't wait. I can't wait. They've done so much cool VFX work over the years. If it's a major movie that's filmed in Australia or New Zealand in the last couple of years, they've probably worked on it.
Yeah.
Including some of the more recent MCU movies, Mad Max Fury Road, Blade Runner 2049, two of my best sci-fi movies ever made. Alita Battle Angel, Avatar. I did not realize they worked on the Avatar movies also, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And they are doing the special effects for The Creator, which comes out in a couple weeks that I am super
Those effects look awesome, by the way.
That I've heard from a few people who have seen it that it is one of the best science fiction movies ever made.
I've been seeing a lot more commercials for that lately, and it looks really cool.
And it's being made. It has an $80 million budget, so I'm very excited to see this. Yeah. Hey, Hobbit games.
Yeah.
Here for it.
Yeah. All right. So we're moving on to what's coming to Game Pass. Obviously, we talked about the Phoenix Wright trilogy is coming on 9/26 to console. The indie game Cocoon, which looks really cool, is coming to console and PC. Lamplighters League is coming on 10/2 to console and PC. 10/3 Gotham Knights is coming to console, PC, and cloud. Warhammer 40k Darktide is coming to console. I think it's already on PC Game Pass.
Yeah, it went into early access on PC last year and was like super broken. So they're like, yeah, we're delaying the console version. It got delayed by a whole year.
Yeah.
This is a game that, for the record, was announced at the original 2020 Series X summer event alongside Stalker 2.
Yep. Man, Stalker 2, man. On 10/10, Forza Motorsport, console, PC, and cloud, and I think that has some sort of the $35 play it.
Yes,
5 days early with exclusive cars and stuff. So
yeah, you can start playing it. I think you can actually start playing it on the 4th.
Yeah.
So, and I know two people who are already buying that early pack, so that makes sense.
Yeah,
they're both huge Forza fans. What a great lineup, though.
Yeah.
Phoenix Wright, I'm super stoked for Cocoon. Cocoon is from some of the minds behind Limbo and Inside. It's an Annapurna game, so it's always worth playing. Lamplighters League is something that's right up my alley. I'm glad I didn't pay for Gotham Knights because it's here. I always was like, yeah, it's kind of a perfect Game Pass game.
Yeah, I wonder. Man, I really wish they would try to fix it to at least run at 60 frames on Series X.
I don't think they're going to.
I don't think they are now, but I mean back when it came out.
Yeah. Corey, we have 2 questions today.
Yeah, I know. We have questions. Why don't you read this first one, Josh?
We got 2 questions. So Titan writes in and asks, what on the Bethesda roadmap are you most excited for? For me personally, it's Doom Year 1.
I mean, for me, it's definitely Indiana Jones. I know that's...
Yeah.
I mean, we already knew about that, and it's kind of a cop-out answer, but that's the one. That's the one that's circled for me. I love machine games. I love Indiana Jones. Yeah. I hope... The only thing I'm kind of worried about is, I hope it's not first person. I hope it's third person. I hope it's kind of like Uncharted, right? Or Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
But other than that, I
think it has to be.
Yeah. Yeah, you want to see the fedora, you want to see the whip, If there's exploring, right, you want to be able to see where you're climbing instead of just dense textures on a screen. So,
yeah, I'm pretty stoked for Indy. For me, it's Dishonored 3.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ignore the obvious choice of Elder Scrolls 6.
Yeah.
I think that goes without. If you know me, that goes without saying that and Oblivion remaster are dreams right now for me.
Yeah.
It has to be Dishonored 3.
Yeah.
I did not think we were getting any more Dishonored after how 2 kind of flopped sales wise, even though it's critically was one of the best games of the year.
Yeah.
Death of the Outsider didn't sell well either. I'm very, very ready for more adventures with Corvo and Emily.
Yep.
So bring it on. I'm ready for that.
I would really like to play Dishonored. I have not played Dishonored.
Man, I went on a big Game Pass binge that year. It was right after the purchase was announced. I went in and played Dishonored, loved it, played Dishonored 2 shortly after. Playing those back to back was an absolute trip. Really good games, though. Really, really good games. Really understand why they had such high reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best level design I've ever seen in a game was in Dishonored 2.
Yeah, I really liked that trailer where like the clock tower or something was like morphing.
Yeah, the Clockwork Mansion.
Yeah.
That is one of the absolute best levels I've ever played in a game.
Yeah,
it is trippy. It is confusing. It is awesome. I loved it. Tiger Jesus writes in and asks us, do y'all think the new Series X design is just a placeholder, and how would you design the refresh? Well, as we said earlier, we think this is pretty locked in. Mm-hmm. This kind of fits with like the modernistic theming that they're trying to do with these boxes now, I feel.
Yeah.
If I was designing one, I probably would have kept with... I mean, it's funny because I think that a redesign probably would have gone from what the X looks like now to what the S looks like.
Yeah.
I think that actually would have been the ideal refresh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's smaller, thinner.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
looks more like a set-top box than anything.
Yeah, and you can lay it sideways too, which this doesn't look like you can lay sideways unless it comes with like a stand, right? I mean,
that's one of the more annoying things I think about this design to me, and really the only thing that doesn't make sense. I know a lot of people that have theirs sideways. Mm-hmm. This is kind of ideal for just like tucking behind the TV or like setting off to the side, but God forbid you try to put this in an entertainment center.
Yeah. I wonder how tall it is. I mean, that's probably in the document somewhere, but like
it probably is. I just don't remember.
I wonder if it's significantly smaller than the Series X is now, though. I mean, I know like width-wise maybe, but I mean, is it the same height? Is it, I don't know. It looks, I like the design, but I think in terms of versatility, I would have probably done a Series S style box, even if it was taller or something, so.
Yeah, man, at least it's not trying to cram the PS5 into an entertainment center. I like my PS5, but I have one space where it fits on my TV stand, and that's behind the TV.
Yeah.
I mean, I have my Series X tucked back there too. But
yeah, I hate the PS5 design, man.
I love the design. I just think it's too big. That's my problem. I actually really love how like futuristic it looks. I am alone on that island. It looks like an alien Wi-Fi router, but I genuinely like the design of that console.
I was going to say,
and I love how like you can pop the plates off and like get new plates for it.
Yeah, I do like that. But I think it looks like a vagina. And
Jesus Christ, with that, Corey, I think it's time.
I'm just saying. I mean,
Jesus.
Anyways, Josh, thank you for your time tonight, as always. I want to thank everybody out there for watching and or listening to this very extra long episode. Tell us what you think of the Xbox designs, what you think of the leaks. I am really interested in hearing what people have to say about it. If you're listening on audio feeds, which a lot of you are, and we appreciate that, leave us a review or a rating where it really helps. Josh, appreciate your time tonight, as always. Where can we find you?
You find me on Twitter at Josh_Finn. But Corey, before we get out of here, I forgot something. We would be remiss to not have this as a footnote on the show tonight.
Oh boy.
16 years to the day since Halo 3 released.
Oh, I know.
What an absolute milestone for Xbox, for video games. Probably the most hyped I've ever seen.
That was like the last midnight launch I think I maybe went to.
I went to several after that. I didn't really start going to midnight launches until after Halo 3, actually. But I remember Halo 3 came out. I went to school. I left school to go home with a friend of mine. We played it all day, and then I got them to drive me back to school so that my parents thought I had been at school all day. They picked me up. We went and got my copy and my buddy's copy, dropped it off at his house, and I was like, oh, yeah, I haven't played it yet. I had already beaten the campaign at this point.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. We stayed up all night. I'd convinced them to let me stay home the next day, so I basically took 2 days off to play Halo 3.
Nice.
That was the first time I convinced them to let me stay home to play a video game. It would not be the last. In the future, it would be your grades better be amazing to stay home.
Yeah.
But I think so. I did it for Halo 3. I did it for Fallout 3. I did it for I want to say Modern Warfare 2.
Yeah.
I skipped a soccer game to play Modern Warfare 2. I remember that, and I got in a lot of trouble. The whole team had to run because I skipped. But Halo 3 was like the last time, other than like a Grand Theft Auto, that I remember people who weren't into gaming knew this game was coming.
Yeah.
Like there were stories about it on the local news. People were lined up for blocks to get this game exactly at midnight. The Times Square launches for Halo 2 and 3, I remember those. Like Bill Gates was there to sell the first copy.
Yeah.
Bill Gates and Major Nelson were like at the registers.
Yeah.
And like, you know, Phil and like Peter Moore were in Washington, and like they had worldwide launch events everywhere.
Yeah.
It was just like, if you weren't playing Halo, you weren't playing anything.
Yeah.
For so long after that came out. Like, and it's funny because like you had Modern Warfare come out like right around the same time, maybe like a week before.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, okay, Junior, let me show you how it's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like really the last time I remember Halo being like this huge like public consciousness thing. Like it had really become like this larger than life thing. We've seen the sales numbers for Halo 1, 2, and 3, and for 1 and 2.
Yeah.
The OG Xbox sold around like 22 million copies or 22 million units. And Halo 1 and 2 each sold over 15 million.
Yeah.
That's brand new copies, not even counting used sales. So, like, pretty much everyone who owned an Xbox had Halo.
Yeah, but I mean, that was the game you bought the Xbox for, right? I mean,
exactly. And it's like Halo 3 was like, people had been buying 360s. Like, this console had been out for almost 2 years at this point.
Yeah.
I bought my console in 2005 knowing Halo 3 was coming.
Yeah. I think I got mine early too. It was the Christmas that Gears came out is when I got mine.
You got yours at the 1 year mark.
Yeah.
I got mine the day it came out because I wanted to play Oblivion and Ghost Recon so badly, and both of them got delayed after I ordered the console, of course.
Of course.
I picked up a little game called Call of Duty 2 with my console, though, and it changed my life. That was the first time I had played like Medal of Honor or Frontline before, but Call of Duty 2 was a truly different experience. Halo 3, though, like that was the game like we were all waiting for. Friends of mine mowed lawns all summer trying to buy one. I remember the Halo 3 console came out with them. That thing is so fucking ugly.
Yeah, the poop green and the orange one.
I knew so many people who had that console.
Yeah.
They had the special controllers came out. Game Fuel was a thing, which still to this day the best soda and like one of the best cross media promotions I've ever seen was Mountain Dew Game Fuel. It was like so surreal to see a video game on a soda can.
Yeah. Now it's everywhere.
Now it's everywhere, but it was like a special soda made just for Halo.
Yeah.
Because that's how it was marketed. And like I remember when it came back a couple years later, like, oh my god. But it was like for World of Warcraft that time, and like it still comes back for Halo periodically. That's the only time the original flavor ever comes back is for Halo games. The Believe trailers.
Oh man,
which might be the best video game marketing of all time.
Yeah.
I remember like we were watching these obsessively all summer. Like when they did the first Halo 3 teaser at E3, we lost our shit. And then when they saw that cutscene in game exactly as it had been in E3, we were like, oh my god!
Yeah.
Like it was so cool. We got to Halo 3 without anything being spoiled for us, even in those early Wild West days of the internet and of video games on the internet. We got all the way to the end. Oh my, just God, the twists and turns, and then the end of it, the end of Halo being, you know, this love letter to the Warthog race from Halo 1. Just God, so many of my favorite gaming memories I think have come from Halo 3. We talk about things that changed our life in terms of pop culture, and like the first 3 Halo games, like just each time I picked one of those up, it was like this. It's like this moment that's going to stay with me forever.
Yeah, and I when I went to that midnight release, I got the helmet, the Legendary Edition. Dude, that helmet still sits on my shelf to this day, man.
I did not have the money to get the helmet, and to this day, I regret not like working my ass off all summer to try and get one.
Yeah.
I do still have my limited edition though. I still have the fat steel book that it came in. The discs are scratched to hell and are no longer playable. They've gone through so many moves. They've gone through so much. The discs themselves have gone through so much trauma.
Yeah.
But I've got like the little art book that came with it still. I've still got all the inserts in it. Like it is, that thing still sits on my shelf to this day.
Yeah. It was funny. The Legendary Edition didn't come with the green boxes. It came with black, like the black generic DVD boxes, and it bothered me so much that I traded in the black box to get a green box.
That is really funny.
Yeah. I couldn't handle it, man.
It was one of those few games that, like, my parents knew 3 games when I was growing up, and that was Grand Theft Auto, Mario, and Halo.
Yeah.
They knew about Mario because, Pokemon probably counts too. They knew those because I had Nintendos growing up.
Mm-hmm.
They knew Grand Theft Auto because people on TV hated Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
My parents watched a lot of Fox News when I was growing up. And then they knew Halo because that was to this day, the only time that my parents ever read the rating on a box. Ooh. And that's because Master Chief is pointing a gun at you on the cover of the OG Halo. Yeah. My grandma was like, "You're not buying this. You're not buying this. Intense violence, blood and gore, strong language. You're not getting this. Says 17 and older."
You mean the blue Kool-Aid that came out of the elites?
That was my argument. Like I was like, I bought an Xbox just to play these games, guys. Like I've been playing them at friends' houses for years.
Yeah.
So that like got me like banned from going to my friends' houses for a while. And my dad was in the middle of like arguing with them about like custody of me. Like my dad wanted me to like go live with him and this and that. So he wanted me to agree with him. So he wanted me to get on his good side. He bought me Halo 1, 2 and the multiplayer map pack for Christmas that year. And my grandma refused to talk to him for like 2 months afterwards because I was playing Halo until like 3:00 in the morning with my friends.
Yeah.
I bought Xbox Live for this. We had dial-up internet. I'd buy that janky wireless adapter on the back of my console.
Oh, yeah, man. That thing was oof.
Dude, I was like moving my console around upstairs because I had to like get it through multiple walls and everything to get the signal through. I bribed the family into getting DSL by convincing them it was necessary for school, and it totally wasn't. It was so I could play Halo online with my friends, and so I could run custom games because I couldn't do it on my internet.
Yeah, that's funny.
Oh my god! But anyways, I'll stop waxing poetic here. We've gone on long enough with this episode. But Halo 3, 16 years old.
Hey, man, dude, that game's a banger. The game's such a banger.
That game is still a banger. It is one of the absolute finest, if not the best trilogy in gaming history.
Yeah, yeah. I think Halo 3 is my favorite multiplayer, for sure.
Halo 3 is my favorite multiplayer. Halo 2 is the one I have the fondest memories of.
Yeah.
Like, in terms of story, in terms of the LAN parties, like, you know, it's funny, I joked about it a few minutes ago with Call of Duty 2, but like, in all seriousness, there's like probably like 2 or 3 games I can point to in my life that, like, if I had not played these games, I would not be podcasting. I would not be still playing games into my 30s. I wouldn't want to work in games. Like, and it's like, other than Pokemon Red, like, Halo has the biggest influence on my gaming history. I liked games before Halo. I loved games after Halo.
Yeah.
So, kudos Bungie. I've been playing your games for 20 years now, I think.
Yeah.
I got first played Halo when I was like 10. I was like 10 or 11 when I first played it at a friend's house.
Yeah.
So, I've been playing your games for 2/3 of my life, and that's probably not a great thing in all honesty. But here's to another 10 years of Halo and Bungie games.
Yeah. Which led us to Destiny, which led to us being friends.
It's true. We Xbox casuals and Tower casuals exist because I convinced my parents to let me stay home from school to play Halo.
All right. Well, you can find me at IamCoreyHD on most social media platforms. Join the Discord. Check out Tower Casuals if you're a Destiny fan. We'd really appreciate it. Subscribe to YouTube, all that stuff. I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening. And until next time, we love you. Goodbye.